name is Laura Reines, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about my experiences of being adopted as an infant into a Caucasian home and into a predominantly white or Caucasian community. Now, I'm not doing this to try and get sympathy or to complain necessarily about the way that I had things. I really think that I had things pretty good. I'm not trying to spark controversy or anything like that. It's just I've been thinking about it, and I kind of feel that I have a story to tell. And if my story can help someone else, I guess then I feel that the purpose has been served. So, as I said, my name is Laura, and I was adopted at the age of 11 months. So, the things I wanted to talk to you today about specifically were what it was like growing up, as the only person of color in a very small community. To start off with, growing up, my parents had 5 kids and then adopted 4 more. So, yes, that's a total of 9 kids. I was adoptee number 8. And so when people hear that there were a lot of people in my family, they say, well, what? Couldn't your parents have kids biologically? Oh, they definitely could, and they did. And then they adopted on top of that. I am the only African American person in my family. I have 2 brothers that are Korean or Korean American, and then a younger sister who's also Korean. So growing up for me it was actually kind of tough. I know now as I look back that a lot of what I did was to try to tell myself that things were okay and that I wasn't having any problems and any issues, and trying to tell myself that I was really just like everyone else. And I look back now and I know that a lot of the reason I did those things was just to help me to get by, to be able to survive and exist in that world. I desperately wanted somebody of color to look up to kind of model myself after, especially a woman of color, but there just were not those opportunities. This was the early mid and late 1970s and during the 80s, and it just wasn't possible. I know my parents tried really hard to find models, of color for me to hang out with or to do things with. And at that time, the resources just weren't there, especially for someone living in a small rural community in Minnesota. So that was kind of hard. When it came to school and everything, I excelled largely because I was an overachiever. I would put demands on myself, I think, that were over and above what anybody else expected of me. And as I look back now, I can tell most definitely that the reason that I did that was I didn't want anybody to say anything negative about me and somehow tie that to my race. I felt a huge responsibility of representing the whole African American race. I'm not saying anybody put that on me. That is something that I did to myself. And maybe those thoughts didn't even cross anybody else's mind, that she represents the whole race. That's just something that I felt. And so I know that I felt really pressured. I felt I always had to succeed. I had to be number one at everything. I had to be almost the perfect model child. And that was really hard because nobody is perfect, yet I held myself to those standards. So then we go through and we come to the topic of dating, and that's something that a lot of people have asked me about. What was it like dating? Well, there were no African American men in my whole community, and probably not within I don't know, a 50 to 80 mile radius of where I was. So I found interest in and dated, Caucasian men because that's what was available. I will say, though, that while I seemed to be everybody's friend and the fun girl to hang out with and this and that, I wasn't really anybody's girlfriend. And it wasn't until my senior year of high school that I really had what you might call a high school dating relationship. Do I blame that all on the fact that I was African American? Not necessarily. Maybe it just wasn't my time, or I wasn't supposed to be dating, at that time. But I do know that it was kind of hard watching my friends go through this milestone and trying to figure out why that wasn't happening for me. I was good enough to be everybody's friend and this and that, but I just never quite made it into that girlfriend realm or category. Dating, I pretty much felt like I needed to date who was available, and I needed to date whoever showed interest in me, whether or not I thought that we were a good fit, because, hey, here is a man that was willing to give me a chance. That was really kind of tough. Probably caused me to make some poor choices and decisions in terms of who I dated and the reasons that I dated them. In another tape, I'll probably talk about the whole hair issue and skincare and all those things that just seem to separate me from the group, just separate me from my peers. There wasn't anyone else in my town or in my community or on my campus that I knew that had the same issues as I did in terms of finding hair products, beauty products, and things like that. I do remember growing up and feeling just very unattractive. And I've seen other videos on YouTube where someone would say, for a black girl, you're kind of beautiful, or you're actually pretty. And believe it or not, I heard comments like that. Like, I never found black women attractive, but I guess, for a black woman, you are pretty attractive. To that, what am I supposed to say to that? Thank you? Or should I be offended? I just wasn't sure how to handle all that. So, in retrospect, I've been asked by parents of color, or I should say Caucasian parents, we're thinking of adopting a girl, specifically an African American girl. Is that something that we should do? And I always, it's hard for me to answer that question. I'd say having a loving home and family is so much better for a child than growing up in the system or having nobody at all. So to that end, I say definitely. I would also say, though, that there's a huge responsibility to Caucasian parents that want to adopt, transracially speaking, and that responsibility is to get that child, whether male or female, around people that are similar culturally to that child, and to allow them to form relationships with them so that they have role models, they have someone they can emulate. And it's not as simple as just throwing some African American books on your bookshelf and saying, see, we're integrating culture. You really have to embrace the culture. You have to encourage that child to express themselves as a person of color if that's what they so choose, and to support that, and to not take that as a parent that you did something wrong, or maybe you shouldn't have adopted or anything like that. You just really have to help that child to find themselves, because I think as women especially, I can speak to, because I am a woman, the whole identity issue is really huge for us, and to be able to feel beautiful and all of that. And I really believe, parents, that you play a large role in helping your daughters to feel beautiful. And that's not just women of color, that's really everyone, I guess, or every daughter. So those are some of my thoughts, just spoken kind of off the hip. I didn't write a script or anything like that, but I will wrap it up for today. What I want to say too is, again, I am not trying to get anybody's sympathy. I'm just sharing my experiences. I am happy that my parents adopted me. I love them dearly. They are my parents. They took me through the valleys and the peaks and the plateaus of growing up. And so I am eternally grateful to them for that. I will be back to discuss something very similar, like I said. But until then, have a wonderful day. And I look forward to having the opportunity to share with you again. Take care, all.